Canada may be banning internal combustion engine sales effective in 2035, but what does that mean and how do people feel about it? Is this the right move at the right time? Are the fears overblown or is this just good policy? I don't know, but I figured I'd bring on a Canadian in person. Yes, they're real people who do exist. I've met them. And so we're going to be talking with Resilient Rye, who you may know from X or from a bunch of events. I finally got to meet him in Chattanooga this year. We're going to figure out what's going on. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. So good to have you here. For those who don't know, Rye is rolling around Austin with Josh West on the hunt for unsupervised Model Ys, which of course don't exist and never will, because people who have never experienced FSD themselves have told me that it's impossible. How's that going?
Yeah, well, as it's going, we did see one with the testing gear on it. So it was exciting. Of course,
But it had a driver still,
it
but
correct. Yes, it had a driver still. But still exciting to see it out there, and I don't give up easily, and I'm here for a few more days, so we're hoping to bring you some more footage of that.
well, there's only 2 or 3 miles of road in Austin, city of 1 million people, so it should be pretty easy to find.
Yeah,
A
right.
lot of people don't. A lot of people seem to be using movie logic, where it's like, well, we'll go to Manhattan and find the person. You will never find one person that you're looking for
The
in
sun, the
in a
sun
city.
always shines on TV, Brian. The sun always shines on
Yes,
TV.
yes, it does. Yes, it does. So what we're talking about is this zero emission car sales by 2035. The Liberal Party has been working for years to get this in place. They're targeting it because of emissions, because of uh, air and water quality, and they've committed to investing billions to accelerate the program. And they're hoping to have a phase in over a number of years to make it possible with the last internal combustion engine sales for passenger and light duty vehicles, which include pickups and SUVs, taking place 10 years from now. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll point out the irony of this first is that we wouldn't really have EVs if it wasn't for Tesla. And
Mm-hmm.
recently the Canadian government has really targeted Tesla and banned them from any incentive programs and really attacked them in the media. So and when we talk about, especially when we talk about supercharging infrastructure, Tesla is definitely leading the way there. And I don't know how they plan to accomplish this, just from a logistics point of view. But I think it's absolutely absurd. I think that options are always gold when you're facing challenges, and that we should always have both options. I think that naturally people will migrate over to EVs, especially Teslas, naturally once they take it for a test drive. But I don't really think this is even possible to do so. But I think a lot of Canadians are angry about it, upset. And in the Trudeau days before Mark Carney, that was expressed. There was a lot of anger about their plans to do this. So Carney was supposed to come in for change, and it just seems like they're going back to the same kind of tactics. So seems absurd to me.
I don't obviously follow Canadian politics quite that closely. I don't know the ins and outs of who's the good guys and who's the out of favor party. So I'm not going to speak to any of that. Um, to your point about the war on Tesla, in addition to not getting the incentives, the tariffs has increased the price by as much as 30,000. So now a long range all wheel drive starts at 80 grand.
Hmm.
Canadian. That's still almost double what it is in the US, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's we talk
It's
about,
it's a lot.
it is a lot, and it knocks the vehicle right out of the incentive programs anyway. For a Model 3 in Canada, it has to be under 55,000 to qualify for an incentives, if the incentives even still existed. And I guess it's worth pointing out here that it's not just that, there's this war on Tesla, but the actual funds to fund the incentive program have been depleted. So even if this wasn't going on, those incentives have been canceled anyway, or paused, I should say, not canceled.
I do get comments that when the whole Tesla committed fraud on the rebates thing came up, I made several videos about it because there was no evidence of that. And the big claims I was seeing was things like, well, you can't sell a bunch of cars in a day. It takes, let's say, conservatively 3 hours for someone to buy a car. I was like, 3 hours? 3 hours? What on earth are you talking about? Uh, I, when I bought my Tesla, it took, in terms of the actual time at the delivery center, 10 minutes of their labor. I mean, the biggest chunk of time they had was bringing the car around front and putting a little piece of paper with my name on the windshield. You just go in, it's all on the app. It's all on the app. And then he hands me the keys and says, go look at it. When you're done accepting it, hit the accept button and leave, please. Uh, and I think that was a personal attack. No, but no, and if there's a problem, you don't accept it. You walk back in and say, oh, this is wrong or something, whatever. But the time is not the issue. And here we are months later and no fraud has been found. I'm confident if they had found fraud, we would have heard. So that's separate issue. One misconception I wanted to point out, because I've talked with some people who oppose deadlines like these. They say, well, I've got this particular use case. In one case, it was I need a truck that can drive up into the mountains with my boat or whatever, or my camper, whatever it may be, and I will be too far from the nearest charging. It just doesn't work. And now, while of course the Silverado would do that today, the Silverado is prohibitively expensive for most buyers, I would argue, as is any of the top end trucks or SUVs. The Escalade IQ is a very capable vehicle. It's not a very affordable vehicle. But do we think that over the next 10 years, we won't see those prices come down a bit and those capabilities increase a bit?
Yeah, I mean, and you're talking in terms of the ICE vehicles, the ICE trucks that you're, yeah. So I mean, I think that,
Comparing electric vehicles, yes.
yeah, yeah, I definitely. I mean, I know that it is the mission, the vision of Tesla to reduce costs, and we've seen that, seen their efforts in that. I don't really think that I've seen that much anywhere else. Prices usually go up and they don't ever really come down, but Tesla's really done some work, and I think the two-wheel drive Cybertruck is a good example of their efforts to reduce costs for people. In terms of ICE vehicles, I don't know how they do that. But I mean, for example, when we talk about banning ICE vehicles like they're doing in Canada, I think and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that might make it more difficult to reduce costs because you're talking about ending a whole industry, and so in the lead up to that 2035 point, I can't help but wonder if we might see ICE vehicle prices rise in Canada because, people, first of all, people are going to be thinking, I have 1 year left to buy an ICE vehicle and then I'll never be able to buy another one. So you're going to have a rush of people buying them just to have one. Um, so, I think in the long term, I think that we're going to see, Tesla products come down in price. That's the goal that they've stated. And that might just be part of the natural migration over to EVs. Might help that. So, yeah, but I would like to see it come
And
down.
it is interesting to see. Yes. Well, there are a lot of use cases still today for which no EV really exists. If you need to tow your horses across the continent, there are no good options. I mean, you could use a Silverado or a Hummer or an Escalade IQ, but those are even still the frequent charging stops might be prohibitive. The cost is definitely going to be an issue where you could get a used diesel hauler for 40,000 that would do a pretty capable job. But the idea that I've seen is I've seen people saying, no, we can't have any kind of line in the sand because the technology doesn't exist today. And it's like, well, right, but in 10 years it should. And if you buy that new truck on the last year that you can, that truck should last you 20 years, right? So, I mean, at that point, we're not talking 2035. We're talking we will still have diesel haulers on the road in 2050, 2055. And I think that the idea that electric vehicles wouldn't be capable and affordable by 2055 uh, is not believable to me, at least.
Hmm.
Uh, I just know that the movies I watched as a kid that were set in the future didn't go that far into the future. That's too far. That year didn't exist in fiction when I was a kid. So I think I think a lot of the concerns are more mental than practical, and I think that there's good money in pretending that EVs can't do things that people like you and I know they can do,
Hmm.
because you've got a little bit of experience with electric vehicles. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, I agree. And just to touch on that, we also own a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and that's because I do a lot of four wheeling, so I have a side by side I have to pull around. I have we do some boating, so I have a boat to pull around, and it's just. I mean, could I do it with an EV? Yes, but in the location that I am, there's it's really rural Ontario. It's way up there, and the closest supercharger is about 20 minutes away. So, and that's, but other than that, when we don't really need the ICE vehicle, we share the Tesla, we drive the Tesla, and of course, we'll replace the Cherokee with an EV, with a Tesla. Um, but there are some use cases for ICE, fuel vehicles, and I'm not sure that, I think it's always good to have that around. As I said before, options are gold. And if we just squish out a whole technology all at once, I'm not sure that that's a good way to go.
And I understand that there are those use cases. My concern is that the less than 1% of people for whom an EV simply won't work today. I have a friend in South Dakota who is a mobile technician for farm equipment. So he's got a big truck with a big trailer, which is his entire shop. And if you're in farm country, do you know how many miles you might do today? The answer is too many to reliably haul this trailer. So for him, it's not an option today. Well, there's power at the farms. Yeah, but maybe not at the barn, not in the kind of quantity you would need to recharge something with 100, 200 kilowatt pack. It would be, that's too much. That's too much. And yeah, even something conservative like a Tesla where a Cybertruck where you're barely over 100 kilowatt hours, that's still that's you're not going to plug into a 110 and get anything meaningful. So there are those use cases, but I just don't see that less than 1% of use cases being sufficient grounds to hold back the 99% plus for whom EVs are already there today. Now, I have seen the argument because in a lot of places in Canada, especially the cities, home charging is not really there. You may be in a condo or a high rise or just an apartment or just have street parking. You may not have access to home charging, but they've seemed to have figured this out pretty well in Europe. Uh, is more charging the solution?
Yeah, I do think so. I think that I think that this whole shift isn't just about shifting, the technology in car, but it's about a shift in infrastructure, which is also difficult. For example, when we're building these apartments, condominiums, that charging be incorporated into the design, or even for building residences, that charging be at least be considered in the design and build of houses. So I think that the people who are maybe making some of the decisions, and I'm only speaking for Canada right now, maybe don't understand the topic as fully as they should in order to be making some of these decisions, and may end up stifling their own goals because of that. But I definitely think that charging infrastructure needs to be brought up and enhanced, specifically in cities. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to push back. You just suggested that politicians sometimes make rules without fully understanding or even barely understanding what on earth. No, that's true. That's true. Politicians love doing that. They love doing that. And you've seen it with all kinds of things, especially technology related, where they just know the solution. Fun little story: when there's a law in the U.S. that says when you dial 911, the cell phone carrier must relay the data to 911 exactly where that phone call came from. They have the technology; they can do that. This is 25 years ago, and they set a deadline on it, and the deadline was deeply unrealistic. All of the carriers were scrambling, saying, "Oh, there's no way we can't. There's no way we can make that deadline." Well, I had a friend who worked at one of the companies. I won't say which one, but he was in the engineering department, and they said, "Okay, so on the day there's going to be a big conference discussing the rollout. Make it work in that city only." So they focused on the one city where the conference was.
Hmm.
And oh, would you believe it? One company actually hit our deadline in Issaquah, Washington.
Right.
So, so it worked. It worked. Um, so, guys, in the comments, what do you think about all that? What I do want to say is something that's less controversial, and I think you'll agree with me. If you get to Austin, get to Terry Black's barbecue. Oh,
Absolutely.
oh,
It was
it is
delicious.
so good. I Yeah. Well, and it ain't cheap, but it's worth it. And when I saw that post, of course, I had to share my picture. It doesn't look like much. It's a Flintstone style rib. This is like a $40 rib and worth it. And you're like, "Oh, where's your side dishes?" It's still early in the day when I took this. I'm not that hungry, but I'm gonna eat this.
Yeah, and I
It
tell you,
is
that one
I
rib
think
there will fill you
magic
up.
is yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And I think magical is like too strong of a term, except for this barbecue. It is wonderful. So we will be on the lookout, guys. What I need you to do is go to X, follow Resilient Rye. That is his handle there, right in on screen. He's going to be in Austin with Josh West 24/7, with Drake, the real Drizzy from Ocala, on the hunt for these robo taxis as they very quietly roll out. And they should be easy to spot. I mean, how common are Model Ys in Austin?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I see them everywhere down here, and
Everywhere.
everywhere. It's amazing to see. It's really cool. Um, and you know what though? Here's the thing. So where I live in Muskoka, Ontario, and that's about 3 hours north of Toronto, where I live. And even in the wintertime up there, like I had 5 feet of snow in my front yard the whole winter, plus or minus as it snowed, and we had a lot of snow. But even in the winter, so where I live is a tourist city and or tourist area. They come up for the summer. It's known for its cottaging. It's got a lot of lakes and stuff. But even in the winter when the tourists aren't there, even in Muskoka, Ontario, this little town, up north in Ontario, there are a lot of EVs. I see them everywhere up there. And then when the summer comes, they just flood in. And it's really great to see that, but nothing like Austin. I mean, I come down here and almost like every third, fourth vehicle is a Tesla of some kind. So it's great. Maybe not every third or fourth, but you get what I'm saying.
They're very common. It's a very common thing to see among humans where there is a local bias for a local producer. In China, you'll find that whatever factory is in a particular region, there's a ton of that car there. And the fact that Austin makes Model Ys is a sign that you're going to see a bunch on the road. So spotting a robotaxi might be a little challenging because the signage is very subtle on the door and apparently controversial. Who cares? A lot of cabs are famously yellow or bright green. I think you can get over that and just be along for the ride. But you don't. It all looks the same from the inside of the vehicle. So, guys, watch out for that. Subscribe to me, subscribe to him, do whatever you got to do. Leave a comment. Am I off base here? Am I crazy that 2055 is not unreasonable for the end of internal combustion? And is that what would actually happen? And to Ryan's question, I'd like your thoughts on, would it cause a surge in internal combustion pricing over the next 10 years? Because that's a possibility I hadn't considered. Everybody else, like, subscribe, down thumb if you must. It's decorative. It helps just the same. And everybody else, stay tuned, stay juicy. And I cannot wait to hear from you, clever robots. Maybe next time I get to Austin.